What would happen if you knew, without a doubt, that you are the missing ingredient in all of your beauty products and practices? Get ready to break through what you have been taught was possible with experiencing the feeling of beautiful, having radiant skin, and loving who you see in the mirror on a daily basis. Now, here's the host of Conscious Beauty Talk Radio, Amy Wall.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Conscious Beauty Talk. I am Amy Wall, and we have an amazing show for you today. I'm joined by my guest, Fiona Wong, and we're going to be talking all about human design today. And so a little bit about Fiona. She is a wonderful, she's a friend, actually. Let me start there. She's a friend, and we met through business. She did some digital marketing work for me before she fully jumped into her role as the creator of the Wild Pixel. And she is a first-generation Chinese, Malaysian, American-born in the concrete jungles of New York City. So she's born to experiment and inclined to constantly challenge established schools of thought. Her specialty is transformation, burning what no longer works into the ground, and guiding you as you rise from the ashes, which is absolutely perfect for Conscious Beauty Talk because that's what we're all about here. We're about transformation and burning what no longer works, especially when it comes to the beauty industry. So welcome to Conscious Beauty Talk, Fiona.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we're going to be getting into human design, why it matters, why it's important, and a little bit of your background in it. And how this show came about is that you were actually the guest expert in the energetic edit for my preeminent mastermind for the preeminent esthetician. And so we thought it would be fun to come on and do this show first so everyone can learn a little bit more about why human design is so powerful. And let's see, I think the first place that we should get started is just to have you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you came to human design, and then we will just take it from there.
So the way I came to human design was kind of interesting because I already had a background in a lot of spiritual practices. I was raised by a very Buddhist family here in the States, and I was constantly surrounded by things like astrology. My mother was very much into Chinese medicine, crystal healing, things like that. And eventually, when I got into business, I ended up working for a business owner who I was having communication issues with. And for some reason, instead of talking it out, she wanted to get our human design charts done together to compare them. And that was my first interaction with human design. I was just like, okay, what is this? This is kind of interesting. And it did have some astrological incorporations in it. So I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, it did not solve the communication problems we had at all. It kind of exacerbated it. But after that, I was like, you know what? This human design thing is pretty darn interesting. And I kind of fell down that rabbit hole and just digested everything I could about it. And I ended up in a group program called Mirror Brand, and the other entrepreneurs in there were like, oh, you could read human design charts? Well, read mine. And I just kept reading them, and people were saying, well, why don't you do this as a business? And here we are.
I love that, and it's just so interesting how we follow the breadcrumbs to where we end up in our life. It's like one step gets revealed, and then another person shows up and gives you some information, and then here we are. So I would love you to describe human design in your own words because you have a really cool way of describing it.
Yeah, I don't love the history of human design, I guess. So when people approach me and ask me, well, what exactly is this? I tell people that in the 1980s, Myers-Briggs and astrology snuck out the window and had an affair. And then a child was born. And no one really knew too much about this child. So they brought it to kind of this little village, I guess, that also had Kabbalah and the I Ching and all of these other cosmic types of practices, and together they raised this child and co-parented, and that child is human design. I feel like it's this culmination. It's a little bit East meets West, and when I first heard about human design, I was like, their history is kind of strange. I don't know if I love it, but after I put it into practice, I was like, wow, this actually answers a lot of questions for me about who I am. So that's kind of like how I describe human design to people who have never heard of it.
Oh, I love that. And I love that it takes from lots of different schools of thought and body of work and really came up with a way, kind of like a roadmap. Tell us about, because essentially everybody listening, and you may be listening live or you may be listening on the replay sometime in the future. Hello to the future. I always think that's really fun. We can talk to the future. But the first thing you want to do is go to the jovianarchive.com. That's JOVIAN archive.com, and have your reading, your free reading generated there. And from there, you put in your birth date and time and place, just like an astrological chart. And so then you get this kind of interesting looking PDF that's got kind of a picture on it, and there is all sorts of different things that are going on, and we can't get into that, nor should we, because it would be too much to explain on the air. But tell us a little bit about how people use human design.
So after you generate that chart, you're gonna feel completely overwhelmed with it's a foreign language. It's a language all of its own. Just take your type and roll with that to begin. But I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, just like, so you get this, is it a roadmap? You're right. You get totally overwhelmed, and that's why you need to get a reading with you, and we'll get into that. But I've heard a lot of different people talk about human design, and it feels like this, what is it called? It's like a generated,
it is a lot like it's a body graph, and it shows kind of like what's happening in your body subconsciously and consciously, and that's a whole rabbit hole over there. But human design, I kind of say if every person is its own book, astrology tells us the tables of contents in your book. The pages are all completely empty. Only the table of contents are pre-written, which is why human beings have free will. And I see human design as the character that was written about you at birth. So we could take any story. We could take Harry Potter. In book one, he's one character, but by the end of the seventh book, he's almost a completely different person because he has progressed from that character that was written. And that's how human design is. It tells you about the character that you were kind of pre-written as, but it does change as you interact with more people. It does evolve, and it does move forward as you grow as a human being and as you live out your life.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm going to just really bookmark that. So astrology is like the table of contents, and human design is like the character that was written, but we still have free will. That is really, really, really cool. Well, I just wanted to share some personal experience from working with Fiona and getting my human design chart ran. I knew that I was a generator, which is one of the types. There's 5 types, I believe. Is that correct, Fiona?
Yep, there's 5 types.
5 types. So generator is one of the most common types, and I knew about that through different podcasts and, kind of touched in. I had a coach once who, at the beginning of the program, said, tell me what your human design is. And then she told me like some high level information about it that I was never really able to do much with. But then I got a reading from you, which was about a 55-minute video that you sent me after you had read my chart. And I can't even tell you how much that helped me. In it, you went through really what would be really in my best interest and what would be easiest for me, the path of least resistance. And really, like, from everything to relationships to work style, I was able to go like, oh, that's why I do that. And even the radio show is a really good example. I started this radio show as a solo artist, and I have a lot to talk about in the realms of conscious beauty. Believe you me, like, I have pages and pages and pages and pages of topics and ideas and awarenesses. But I was finding when I would come on the radio show, it just wasn't easy for me to just talk on my own. I really liked having a guest, and I eventually brought Emily on as a co-host, and you didn't even know that yet. But when I got my reading, you said that I had an undefined voice center and that it would be much easier for me to have guests or to have a co-host. And it was kind of funny because right after that I got to say, oh, guess what? I did bring on a co-host. And as soon as Emily and I started doing the show together, things flowed much easier or easily for me, so I could have someone to bounce things off of. So that's just one example of how I've used human design and really, what I found out about it in there to enhance my work style. And I think it's going to be really important for this class that you're teaching on Wednesday to the estheticians in my mastermind, because I think one of the things about business, and specifically the business of beauty, is that a lot of times, depending on the industry you're in, we get put into boxes of this is what you do in this industry. This is how you work this type of job. This is how you work with clients. This is how you do this. And especially in COVID age and post-COVID and beyond, it's really up to us to innovate and to create new ways of working with clients. So there's not only that, but then there's there's the person, there's the entrepreneur. And depending on what their human design is, I have a really big feeling that people are going to have huge awarenesses and huge ahas about not trying to bang their head or to force themselves to do something inside of the box that just doesn't fit their design. Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that people need to understand that's really important is things like human design and astrology. It's not meant to confine you. It's not like, oh, well, like a lot of people tell me that Leos are very self-absorbed and arrogant, and it's like, well, no, Leos tend to attract people who have like a Leo rising, tend to attract a lot of attention, yes, but that attention can be used to build a platform. It can be used to elevate other people's voices. It's really your perspective of it. So when people use human design, it's a really great way to see, like, this is what I'm inherently born with, and this is what I can leverage, and this is what I can use. And I also always tell people I've read for, not everything's going to resonate immediately, especially since we are all so different throughout different parts of our lives. Something I tell you now may have resonated when you were 20 years old and just moving into adulthood, and then it would be a completely way of approaching it when you're 50 years old and you've got a lot more experience under your belt. So these human design, it's not meant to be a cage. It's not meant to be a box. It's supposed to give you a series of points that you are able to explore and grow from. It's like your own personal North Stars within a graph.
Oh, beautiful. I love that, your own personal North Star. And I really relate to that too, being 50, almost 51 years old. It's really cool to have something like a human design chart reading done at this age, because I do have so much information and really, prior education and experience under my belt. And I can use all of that to look back and go like, oh yeah, I can see where this played out in my life. So this is one of those things that, no matter what age you are, you can keep coming back to it and using it as that North Star. And so on that note, let's go ahead and go to our first break. And when we come back, we'll continue talking about human design with Fiona Wong here on the Inspired Choices Network.
Your beauty rituals are a rich source of nutrition for your mind, body, spirit, and skin. Embark on a journey into a land of possibilities and discover your own rich well of beauty and health. By tuning into Conscious Beauty Talk with your guide, Amy Wall, you'll activate your connection with source energy and learn the tools and techniques to experience healthy, radiant skin that isn't defined by age. Are you ready to become the best version of yourself now? Listen for Conscious Beauty Talk radio show every Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, and 12 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is Conscious Beauty Talk with your guide, Amy Wall. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255, Canada 613-800-8736, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Amy at loveamyskin.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to Conscious Beauty Talk. You're listening to Amy Wall and Fiona Wong, and we're talking all about human design. And really, we're going to start diving into how it can really be applied to beauty rituals, self-worth, our culture, our value, and let's just see where we can go with that. So, Fiona, tell us a little bit about just your history growing up and how human design has helped you in some of these areas of self-worth and value.
Yeah. So I had a pretty, I don't know what the word is, kind of like a troubled upbringing. I am Chinese Malaysian American, and for those who are not familiar with some of the older Asian beauty standards, especially Chinese beauty standards, is there's just this, I don't know what the right word is, but I guess like a fetishization of very small bodies, light-skinned bodies. There is a lot of classism, even racism in beauty that is rooted in our beauty culture. And my parents were actually beauticians, so it wasn't just, oh, I'm dealing with societal beauty standards. It was they brought it home, and they would constantly tell me that my nose was too wide or my body is too large for an Asian woman, or even things like you should get a breast reduction, just a lot of negativity surrounding how I naturally looked. And as I grew older, I found that this is not just my story. This is the story of a lot of women, whether they are women of color, whether they are children of immigrants. A lot of women have grown up being told that they don't fit some sort of standard. You're too skinny, you should eat more. You're too big, you should eat less. And there's never quite a happy medium where we're allowed to look in the mirror and think, I am beautiful just the way I am. And even when women do things like that, they're called stuck up. They're called all of these things. There's just so much divide when it comes to loving yourself as a human being. So what human design helped me do was when I really looked into my chart and I saw the pieces of what I really resonated with, one of them was there's something called an authority. It's kind of your compass, your decision-making factor. And mine is called self-projected, which means I ramble a lot. I have to talk. I will talk for 20, 30 minutes straight to my partner or to myself in the shower in order to come up with decisions. When I was 3 years old, there's actually videos of me looking in the mirror and speaking to myself in third person and my family saying, wow, how this child just talks all day. She talks nonstop. why is that that's not wonderful, because women in my culture were to be seen and not heard. You shouldn't speak too much. My mother even suggested I get surgery on my lips to make it smaller. And when I joined the military, it was the same thing, don't speak. It's not your turn to speak. It's your opinion is not valid. And throughout my life, I just felt this rebellion. Like, I want to talk. I want to say something. I have something important to say. And I want to have debates. I want to have these open conversations. And when I found that in my human design chart, I had this defined throat center with my authority, everything made sense. Like, of course, I love talking. This is part of who I am. This is how I get close to people. I listen to people's stories. I want them to tell me their stories. I connect to people through stories, and this is all in my chart. And on top of it, in human design, they tell you this overarching life theme that will play out throughout your life. And my overarching life theme is self-love. When I heard it, I was like, that is garbage. I want to save the world, or I want to do something cool. I don't want to spend this lifetime learning how to love myself. And when I hopped on a consultation with you, Amy, and you asked me to bring a handheld mirror, it was very difficult for me to look at myself. It was very difficult for me to look in that mirror and see someone who's in their late 20s and doesn't look like a supermodel, someone who does not look like any of the women I was told I should look like. And that was like an aha moment for me. It was like, this is why you need to reconcile how you love yourself in this lifetime. This is why you were put on this earth with this overarching theme, because you have spent your whole life, and if anyone believes in reincarnation, probably previous lifetimes not loving myself or my gifts. And when you asked me to look at myself in the mirror, that was one of the first times I really, really, really looked at myself. And I did not realize how much negativity I held towards myself, to the point I couldn't even look myself in the eye. And both you and human design helped me unearth all of that. And now it's like, cool, I can take all this to a therapist. I can journal about this. I can find support systems in my life that will encourage me to grow in this path. And that's kind of like my background and how it ties into human design.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm really receiving the power of all of that, and just how, again, there's a golden thread that weaves in your experience and, working with me in human design, and ultimately your story, I think, mirrors, it has its own flavor from being an immigrant and from an immigrant family. But I think all of us have a little flavor or a tinge of some of this just unworthiness and not enoughness. And first, when you said you're too skinny or you're too fat, I mean, I can't even think of one woman that I've ever worked with that hasn't felt some form of judgment on her from her family and her culture, and most of all from the beauty industry. And so, to be an energetic esthetician and to be someone who's really about helping women feel comfortable in their own skin, it's so important to have these conversations and to get down to the root of, your worthiness, which has nothing to do with what we look like. And yet the mirror can be such a powerful portal. So thank you for sharing that. Well, let's see. Where's she? Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, when I reflect on because I'm gonna be 30 in exactly 6 months from now, when I reflect back on my 20s, it makes me almost think, how many opportunities have I passed up in my life? How many things did I say no to or ignore because I thought I wasn't beautiful enough for it? And when I say it out loud, it almost sounds ridiculous, like, really? And then when I look back, it's like, yeah, I have passed up so many opportunities in my life. I have said no or told myself I was unworthy before anyone else could even say it, because I was so conditioned to believe that I had to be beautiful in order to be worthy of receiving good things in my life.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, and I have felt the same exact way. And what's interesting, just speaking of turning 30 and being in your late 20s, and just from an aging standpoint and from just, the thing about aging, which is really the backbone of the beauty industry. It's how we sell products, is that we're not good enough, right? We need all these products so we could actually possibly, attain this good enough status. I can remember feeling really upset that I was turning 25. That number seemed to feel like really relevant to me for some reason. Then when I turned 30, I wigged out again. 40, there was a crisis. 45, there was a crisis. It took me until I was 48 years old until I finally got it. Oh, this never ends. It's actually just one giant game where we're never quite where we're supposed to be, or it's too late. And so just like when we look back on those photos of ourselves when we're younger, possibly in high school, and we thought we were hideous and fat, and then we look back on that photo and we see how just perfectly perfect we were. I really try to practice that in each age, just to say, hey, this is me now, and how can I get the most out of this age? How can I get the most out of this moment? And how can I just feel like enough right now? So thanks for sharing that. And I think that that's really what binds us all, is this shared experience as women of really struggling with this concept of enoughness. And I think once you have your human design read and kind of see also what I like to describe, what I felt like I learned in my human design with you is that I learned some of my superpowers. And I think if you know what your superpowers are, then, that's something you can really feel good about and kind of pump up your worthiness well with. So in human design, speaking of that, tell us, are those superpowers correlated with any area on the body graph? Is there a place where you look at somebody's chart and you just go right away, you go, oh, that's their superpower?
So I see it as a giant puzzle, or almost, those magnets that people put on their refrigerators, and then there's just this mismatch of words, but then when you start rearranging the words, you can make sentences or short stories. That's kind of what the body graph kind of is like. It's like this, to me, it's like a vomit of information, and it's okay, now I have to start contextualizing everything. So for example, a lot of people ask me about their business because why do you go to someone who reads charts or tells fortunes? It's either for love or money. And my specialization is entrepreneurship. So a lot of people say well, I'm struggling with my audience. I'm struggling with a certain transition or figuring out what I want to do next in business. And then there's a lot of people who even say, I don't think I have a superpower. I think I am so ordinary compared to everyone else. And then when I look at their chart, you can see how they process information, how they process the world around them, and then what do you do with it? And then I have some people who are really good at networking. They're just that person that can walk into a room and start just connecting people. I don't even know what you call almost like a PR person. You connect all the right people together, then everybody wins. There are people who are almost like mercenaries, where they get hired to just jump in, fix something, and jump out, and they are completely satisfied not having long-term relationships with people. They just like to come in, do what they want to do, and jump out. There's just so many different ways it can go in a chart. There's not really a specific place I can see it. It's kind of like the story will just tell me, and it's okay, I will relay that information. Thank you.
I love it. It's I always talk about how a business or a brand has its own consciousness, right? As an entity, it has its own consciousness. And it sounds like that the body graph, once you get that, actually starts talking to you and giving you awarenesses as well. There's that character. It's almost like an avatar, right? It's that when you get the body graph, it can be sort of the avatar for the person. So let's go ahead and take our second break, and when we return, we will continue this fascinating conversation about human design with our special guest, Fiona Wong, here on the Inspired Choices Network.
Your beauty rituals are a rich source of nutrition for your mind, body, spirit, and skin. Embark on a journey into a land of possibilities and discover your own rich well of beauty and health. By tuning into Conscious Beauty Talk with your guide, Amy Wall, you'll activate your connection with source energy and learn the tools and techniques to experience healthy, radiant skin that isn't defined by age. Are you ready to become the best version of yourself now? Listen for Conscious Beauty Talk radio show every Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, and 12 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is Conscious Beauty Talk with your guide, Amy Wall. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255, Canada 613-800-8736, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Amy at loveamyskin.com. Now, back to the program.
Okay, welcome back to Conscious Beauty Talk. We're talking about human design. So, Fiona, I have a question about human design. I've also heard of gene keys and it being kind of related to human design. Can you tell us anything about that? Do you know about gene keys?
Yeah, so the gene keys are, like, if you ordered a copy of one of their books, usually they'll tell you, it's kind of like nerding out when it comes to human design. There are certain things, we have like the planets, we have your north node, your south node, all of that stuff. Those things kind of tell us, if you believe in fate and destiny, it can tell us that's where you're headed. It can be, for those who are not religious, I say it's what your soul is yearning to grow towards in this lifetime. And the gene keys will help you unlock that. There's also the Book of Destinies, where you look up your incarnation cross, and it'll tell you in like 2 to 3 pages that overarching theme that's going to also play out in your life. So that's kind of an extension of human design. It's another rabbit hole that people can jump down into for sure.
Well, I love a good rabbit hole. Everybody that listens to the show knows that. I'm all about the rabbit hole because, it's just having these tools to discover, how we can best work in this world, I think is super, super valuable. But the one thing I would say about both gene keys and human design is that it's very, very heady. There is just a lot of information and a lot of detail. And what would you say if someone's listening to the show, they've gone ahead and gone to Jovian Archive, they have got their free chart. What's next? What should they do after that?
Head to my website, shameless self-plug, thewildpixel.com, and there's a button there that there's like a big orange button. Just click on it and then select what your type is, and then I will send you a series of emails helping you kind of navigate it. I have a very hands-on approach to human design. I love reading philosophy books, but I'm not a philosopher. I have a 3-5 profile. If you have one, you'll probably recognize what that means. A 3-5 profile is someone who learns by doing. I'm that kid that didn't pay attention in class, but understood things because I broke it and then had to fix it myself. So that's my approach to human design. When you jump into that orange button and put in your information, I will send you a series of practical applications, because human design is pretty much useless to you unless you're able to use it in your day-to-day life. And I will walk you through applying what your type means. There are several things that go along with your type. So one is, what does your type actually mean? And what makes you different from other people that have your type? Because there's generators and manifesting generators, you guys make up 70% of the population. We cannot lump you all in a box. So I like to really let people know, hey, take all the information with a grain of salt, because this is the only thing you really have in common. And then I talk to you about your your not self, which is, it's almost like an anti-compass. It's a system inside your body that tells you, hey, we are going in the wrong direction, or we are doing things that are not aligned with our goals, and we're heading towards a path that might not be the healthiest. So I walk you through how to understand that. And I also walk you through understanding your signature, which is the opposite. It's what happens when you are living in your design. This thing called a signature unlocks in your life, and it's kind of like this awesome wave of like positive feelings and health and almost peace that you can ride through. And lastly, I talk you through how to manifest things in your life, because we always hear about the people who manifest a mansion or like a six-figure business, and it doesn't work that way for a lot of people, and your human design actually tells you how you're meant to manifest. So I walk you through how to do all of those things and how to apply it in your life, because just don't fall too deep into the rabbit hole. Otherwise, you're going to be like, okay, well, now I'm burnt out and I don't know where to begin or where to end with human design.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And I'm just looking at my chart right now, and my not self theme is frustration. But I don't see what my signature is, but I did sign up for your email series.
I think it's satisfaction.
I'm excited.
As a generator.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I just whatever you described as the signature, like the like feeling really good and everything is flowing. I'll have that, please. That sounds great.
Yeah, as a generator, it's actually pretty simple to gauge whether or not you're living in alignment with what you actually want to do in life, because you're meant to be exhausted at the end of the day. So if you're feeling satisfied, exhausted, and you're like, oh, I did such great work today, everything was in flow, I am brimming with inspiration, you live in your design. But if you're frustrated, exhausted, that means you're forcing yourself to do things that you generally don't want to do, and it's time to have that conversation with yourself, like, hey, what am I doing? Is there something that does not align with my own values, and is my body trying to tell me something? So that's for generators. Knowing the difference between satisfied exhausted and frustrated exhausted helps you gauge how you spent your day.
Oh, that is awesome. And I love how it's at once super complicated and heady and, very detail oriented. And then you just broke it down very, very simply for me. And I think in general, I really do feel satisfied, exhausted most days. So yay. And what the reading, for everybody who's listening, I highly recommend getting a reading with Fiona, because you get this video that she films for you on Loom where, you can see the body graph and you're going through and explaining everything. And I've already watched it 2 or 3 times, definitely 3 times, where I just was like, oh, okay, that's what she was saying, because it's a lot of information and it's really nice just to have it, to re-listen to. What are some other things that you do with human design? So you're giving a class to my mastermind, and tell us a little bit about what we'll be focusing on there for the professionals.
So one of the things I find that is really important is understanding your identity. So we will be talking about the G center. And for anyone who has generated their chart, it's that giant diamond-looking yellow center in the middle of your chest. This is where your identity lives, and it can either be colored in or not colored in. So I think it's especially important for business owners to understand whether their identity is something that is inherent within themselves, which if it's colored in yellow, your identity is something you were born with. You might not feel aligned with your identity because you've been told you need to be all of these other things, and you might have to kind of excavate your identity out of all of that crap, but it's still there. And then people who don't have that colored in usually are like shapeshifters or chameleons. Their identities can shift, and they can wear all of these different hats and flow depending on what other people need. And I think as a business owner, it's important to understand which one you have and then work with it. Because if you have felt one way your whole life, and the entrepreneur circles are so guilty of this. It's just constantly telling people, you need to do this, or you need to follow this framework if you want to make a lot of money. And when you feel one way and you try to force yourself into something else, what happens? It backfires, and then you feel fake, and then maybe your audience calls you out for being fake. And if you don't feel aligned with your identity, your brand is not going to feel aligned. So we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about manifestation, and not so much in the sense of I'm imagining, a new puppy, and that's going to appear in front of me. But in human design, we believe there are different ways people manifest based on their design. And we're going to go through that because I believe manifestation serves several purposes. For some people, it is like positivity. It is optimism for them to hold on to. For other people, knowing what they want to manifest and then being able to reverse engineer it helps them decipher whether or not something that comes their way will help them reach their goal or not. So we're going to talk about all of those different things as well. So it's going to be a loaded class.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I think especially for the industry of aesthetics, which is going through a huge revolution right now, because at one point we had what was called professional skincare. And that really meant that there were products and treatments that were not available on the internet and weren't available through just any channel. You had to go to a licensed esthetician to get that product or service. Well, with the advent of the internet, that was sort of the first wave of that going away. And then, just over the last 10 years of the internet, there's so many bloggers and YouTubers and just essentially you can get anything on the internet. And so the esthetician, who's truly a subject matter expert more than anything, right? She's stuck in a room working with clients one-on-one. She doesn't really know how to market herself and get herself out there. And she's also really trying to still stick with this old model of, we know more than the consumer, we know more than our client, and we need to really protect that information and only work with products and services that are not available any other place. And I'm really encouraging people to drop their barriers and to realize that the client is extremely savvy these days, right? I mean, even when you and I did our conversation, you knew a lot. You have two parents that were in the beauty industry. You peruse the Reddit skincare subthread. You knew about some ingredients. And so I didn't have the consultation with you and tell you, that I knew more than you did and so that I could be your savior. I just really listened to you and guided you with the information that I did know and helped you come to, what would be best for your skin. So in terms of the class that we're holding in the mastermind, I think this is going to be really, really powerful because when people know what their people, meaning the estheticians, really know how their best work style is going to be based on those two things you're going to teach about, that's going to take a lot of pressure off them just to begin with, because it's a new day for estheticians. I mean, around the world and around the country especially, if we are allowed to go back to work, and if you're listening to this in the future, we are still in the middle of COVID-19, 2020. Even if you are allowed to go back to work, the PPE or the personal protection, I'm not sure what the E stands for, all of the different rules, the sanitation, I mean, it's not really about the high touch anymore, right? It's just about getting on some creams without catching a virus. And so something's got to change there. And I know I went on a little tangent and a rant there, but that's really what it's at stake, is that estheticians really need to learn how to support their clients from the inside out and not just about working on the top layers of the skin. So on that note, we'll go to our last break, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation.
Your beauty rituals are a rich source of nutrition for your mind, body, spirit, and skin. Embark on a journey into a land of possibilities and discover your own rich well of beauty and health. By tuning into Conscious Beauty Talk with your guide, Amy Wall, you'll activate your connection with source energy and learn the tools and techniques to experience healthy, radiant skin that isn't defined by age. Are you ready to become the best version of yourself now? Listen for Conscious Beauty Talk radio show every Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, and 12 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is Conscious Beauty Talk with your guide, Amy Wall. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255, Canada 613-800-8736, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Amy at loveamyskin.com. Now, back to the program.
All right, welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us, Fiona. This conversation has been really, really good, and it makes me just want to cancel all my appointments and start reading as many books as possible, because I do find that this body of work has so many little hidden gems, even you talking about that center and talking about manifestation. It's like there could be one aha or one awareness that could change someone's life, and you definitely changed my life, helping me realize that I didn't have to work so hard, that I could actually just, respond and allow other people to be a part of my world. And the other thing I learned through my reading was that, I was really built to create communities. And so what I've created over on my Mighty Network, the TimeLight Circle, is really just in tune with my avatar and my character, and it is what I'm supposed to be doing in my life. And that was great having that confirmation and knowing that, when I run into roadblocks and stumbles, as we all do, and especially being an entrepreneur, where, the greatest personal development tool ever, because there's so many twists and turns and ups and downs and cash flows and funnels and services and all the different things. Every time I get frustrated, I just go, no, I'm living my design. I know I'm supposed to be doing this, and I just don't worry about it and just allow life to flow along with me. So thank you for the gift that you be, Fiona.
Yay!
Yay! And I went to your new website, which is absolutely beautiful, and everybody should definitely check that out. It's thewildpixel.com, and that's linked into the show notes and in all the podcast episodes. So everyone listening, definitely take a listen to that. And if you're a licensed esthetician and you're listening to this, we would love to have you join us in the mastermind for the preeminent esthetician. You can learn all about that at the energeticsofesthetics.com. That's energeticsofesthetics.com, not without the "the" in front of it. And every month we do a master class, and then we do what I call an energetic edit, and that's what this class will be. So it's not quite around being an esthetician per se, but it's going to be tools and processes that they can use to help them really imprint their best self first, and then in turn create a business and beauty brand that will help light up the world. So it's really important work that you're doing. Let's see, we have a few more minutes, and let's see, what have you got going on, Fiona? What else do you do?
I'm a projector, and we the running joke is we just sit around and wait to be invited to things. But that's not actually that. Gary Vaynerchuk's also a projector, by the way. So you can kind of see how we live our lives. It's a little bit chaos, and then when we get invited somewhere, we're just like, yeah, we're here, and we're just gonna cause chaos. But in terms of my life right now, I think I'm finally in a place where I'm happy with myself in all areas. I think I mentioned to you, I got divorced last year. I became a single mom. I was on welfare last year as well, and food stamps and things like that. And now, not even a full year later, I feel like I'm okay and I'm content, and I don't know where life is going to take me next. I don't know what the future has in store, but for the first time in my life, I feel safe. And I found this quote when I was scrolling through Reddit. Somebody had commented, I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's okay to just exist sometimes. Your life and your value is not based on someone else's opinion of whether you were productive. And I've kind of been taking that to heart over the past several days. I'm just like, you know what? I think it's just okay if I just exist for a little bit and enjoy the business I've grown and enjoy my friends and my family and just enjoy the fact that, you know, what a time to be alive that we can even have these conversations and not, you know, get burned at the stake for it.
Right. I love that. And I love that invitation that it's okay just to exist. I mean, I struggle with that a lot because it's all about, you know, what's on my to-do list? Am I providing value? Am I doing what I'm here to do? And it's like, no, back to the worthiness piece. We are worthy because we exist, and that's absolutely enough. So to end the show, Fiona, are there any more resources? And we know we're going to send people to jovianarchive.com to get their free body graph. Then they're going to go to thewildpixel.com, and they're going to press the orange button at top, and they're going to put in their type, and they're going to receive an email sequence from you. Can you share any other resources or places people might want to go?
There's a website called, I think it's mybodygraph.com. If you just Google talking body graph, if you want to self-study and kind of DIY this, you can kind of go there and basically read up on the basics of your chart. But otherwise, human design, it's still a little bit of an underground thing, though I believe it's making waves here in the next several years. So maybe we'll have more resources.
Yeah, hopefully. And I agree that I think it's going to be coming in a wave. I've seen that kind of creeping up here and there. Okay, so then we have a couple more minutes. I'm going to ask you about your skin. How is your skin doing, Fiona?
Oh, you know what? My skin has been going through ups and downs, but we're friends now. I'm not I'm not reassessing what I'm eating and hating myself because I have a pimple. I'm just like, oh, you have a pimple today. Okay. Are we good otherwise? Am I feeling good about myself? Okay, we're good. So that's kind of like my relationship with not just my skin, but like with my body and just myself now. I'm just like, all right, that happened. Like, it's fine. It's a lot more relaxed since working with you.
I am the same way. In fact, I had this really weird giant pimple that came up probably from wearing the face mask, right where the face mask was making friction. And there's still a dark spot there from the post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, which is just a fancy scientific word for saying after damage dark spot. And I look at it and I'm just like, wow, okay, so you showed up there and yeah, what else is possible? I'm totally okay with that. And I'm really glad to hear you say that, because truly the skin is just giving us messages, right? That's all it is. It's just like, oh, you know, it could be a hormone fluctuation. It could be some emotions that you expressed. Maybe you did a big journaling exercise. Maybe you did a really incredible human design reading that took you out, you know, and that's the skin just talking. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll be coming back next week with Emily Fernandez for the Summer Sun Social. We're going to be talking all about safe sun, sunscreen ingredients, and so much more. I love you, and I will look forward to seeing everybody next week here on Conscious Beauty Talk. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for choosing to listen to Conscious Beauty Talk. Amy Wall will return next Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, and 12 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, remember, the power isn't in the bottles or potions. It's in you.